Thank you for Berlinda for being one of the warriors in the healthcare industry, taking care of people and all that good stuff. So I'm glad we have you in out here in the streets because yeah, I probably couldn't do it. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, that's Tasha. You're working. That's right. You're working too. You got a lot of stuff going on where you work. So thank you to you too for taking care of the people who need mental health services so they can get what they need. So gratitude. So here's what I want to do first, guys, before I get started. I actually want to ask a question and have you comment below because it seems like when we're in situations like this, a time of uncertainty, there's a lot going on. People are panicking and afraid. And I understand, why people are concerned and fearful and all that kind of stuff. Um, so what I wanted to do tonight is I want to start with this. During this pandemic that's happening in our world, what is one thing that you're thankful for as a result of this coronavirus? Not that you're thankful for the coronavirus. I'm not saying that, but what can you be thankful for? What has happened that you're like, you know what? I'm grateful for this. Give me some gratitude on in the comments so we can have a different perspective. I'm sure people who are watching me kind of have that perspective anyway, but it's always good just to kind of be grateful. So I know for me, one thing that I am grateful for is a slower pace. I mean, I still have a lot of work to do, but it seems like just mentally I've slowed down a bit because there's not a lot I can't go out and do as much. And so I'm really grateful for a chance to kind of reflect a bit and for a little bit of a slower pace. So somebody says their faith. Solitaire says she's grateful for her faith. Absolutely. Especially in times like this. The word. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Anything else? Anybody else got some gratitude they want to put in the comments? I think you guys are when you hear me, I think it's a bit of a delay, but it's all good. Hey, Go In, thanks for joining me, sis. Oh, I miss you so much. Oh, that's my friend. All right, guys. So here's what we're gonna do. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about toxic relationships. And one of the things that made me want to do this. I had a couple of topics I was bouncing around. Was a few weeks ago I put out a survey. I put the link there. I put out a survey that I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. Oh, I put out a survey asking people what topics they wanted me to cover. I want to make sure I'm covering what you guys are wanting and what you're needing and what's going to really impact your life and help you flow and grow and all that good stuff. And so this topic came up a couple of times around relationships, toxic relationships. How do you know when relationships are healthy? Relationships came up a few times. And so there is a lot to relationships. And there are a lot of different types of relationships. So what I'm going to cover tonight is going to be kind of high level, kind of big picture and broad. I'm going to kind of paint with broad strokes because there's so many different dynamics to relationships, marital, dating, friendships, parent, child. And so, maybe I'll do a Facebook Live series on relationships. If that's helpful for you guys, let me know in the comments if it would be helpful. But I want to talk broadly about relationships and talk about the toxicity that we can see in relationships and how do we protect ourselves against that while also being able to love others. All right. So you guys know when I deal with any kind of strategies, I come from a biblical perspective, but not just that. I'm also coming from a perspective that is generally not what quote unquote the world or society would say actually makes sense. It seems like, no, that's crazy. Why would you do that? But I'm telling you what I know. When I've employed these strategies in my own life, I've seen the fruit that comes from them. So this is going to be a little bit challenging tonight for some of us, but it's okay because the goal is that we grow, right? Into the things that God has already designed us to be and that we can be healthy people and that we don't allow the relationships that we are in that may be toxic to cause us to be toxic and unhealthy, and then giving back out to them what they may have given to us. All right. So let me just read this real quick. Read some of the comments that we have. That the gratitude, God's protection, grateful for an intentional time and journal every morning. Yes, that is amazing. Absolutely. Faith-based sessions like this. Oh, thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Faith, ability to control what I can control, opportunity to decompress. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I love y'all. I love the gratitude. All right, so let's talk about toxic relationships. The first question I want to ask you is, do you have any relationships in your life right now that you would consider toxic or unhealthy? Let me know. Do you have any relationships right now that you would consider toxic or unhealthy? Let me know. Tell me what's going on. I'm pulling up my comments from my phone so I can see, kind of see if I can make sure I get my comments in real time from you guys. Any relationships that you have in your life that are toxic or unhealthy? I love what Melissa says. In order to grow, you must remove the toxic. You have to. You cannot grow. Sherry says yes. Michelle says no. Good. Missy, yes. Okay, good. We're going to get in. Oh, wait, before I get into this topic, I meant to tell you guys something. So I now have opened a Facebook group. It's called Flow Tribe Live. I'm going to put the link in the comments. You guys can go ahead and join it now. I mean, I've set it up. I got to put some stuff in there, but it's open. And I want you guys to go ahead and join my Facebook group. It's called Flow Tribe Live. And let me tell you a little bit about why I'm doing this. Thanks to some encouragement from some other people, namely Missy. We had a conversation about this, and she kind of just encouraged me kind of to move forward with something that I had been thinking about. So I'm appreciative for that. And the survey that I did also gave me this feedback. And so I want to create a group where I can go and kind of be a little bit more intentional, give you guys a little bit more engagement and conversation and encouragement and support inside of a free Facebook group. All right. And so I'm actually going to be moving my lives. Most of my lives will be in that Facebook group. So if you like watching the lives, join the group. Again, it's free. It'll be encouragement, all kind of fun stuff. Hopefully you join and enjoy that experience that we're going to have in Flow Tribe Live. I'm going to do some after the live shows, some things when I bring guests on to give you some extra stuff. So it's going to be fun and exciting. So yeah, let me give you that real quick. And now let's get into our topic. All right. So Tasha says, I think we all do at some point. Yes, lack of accountability on their end, and you lose trust. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about this. I want to talk about these relationships because in the survey, I think I told you that people have been asking about this. So there must be a need. So what I want to first start with is to help you identify what I mean when I say toxic. All right. So the first thing I want to say is there is no person that I know in this world that is exempt from toxic behavior. Every person in their life at some point in their life has exhibited or been the recipient of toxic behavior. And the reason I know this is because we're all human. Every single person is human, and every single person struggles with selfishness at some point in their life. Now, whether or not you admit it or whether or not you own it, or even know it, whether or not you're even aware of it, I can put money on it that we've all struggled in some way, shape, or form with selfishness, hurting other people, being jealous of other people, struggling with some of the things that we just struggle with as humans. All right, so this isn't a beat them up, bash them session. It's just a reality check for all of us, but also it's something to help us pay attention to, because if we're going to really move forward in life, we cannot carry dead weight. I don't mean the people are dead, but the weight that the toxic relationship has on you is dead weight. You cannot move into the new if there is dead weight attached to you. Let me say that again. You cannot move into the new if there is dead weight attached to you. Now, again, the person themselves is not the dead weight. They have value, whether or not they're in their place where they need to be right now or not. They have value. They're just in a different place. And what they're exhibiting and what you're experiencing is really dead weight to you. All right. So let's talk about real quick what I mean when I say toxic. First of all, when we talk about toxic, the word toxic means poisonous. It just simply means poisonous. And so something that is poisonous, all right, is something that can cause you death, right? It can cause you death or illness if you take it. So like poison, right? Rat poison, whatever. If you take it, you could die. It also is produced as a means of attacking enemies or prey, right? And so snakes, venomous snakes have poison. They're attacking their enemy. They're attacking their prey, right? You'll kind of see where I'm going with this. Now, here's the thing. Snakes may or may not know that they're poisonous, but they are. Whether they know it or not, they are, all right? Toxicity is also something that's unpleasant, or poisonous, which is the same thing as toxic, something that's unpleasant. And one of the things about toxic people, not all of them, but there's a malicious intent to harm you. There's a malicious intent to harm you. So there are times when there are people in our life that do things to harm us, but their intention wasn't malicious. The intent wasn't malicious, even though they harmed us. Oftentimes, I shouldn't say often, but a lot of times, what can happen is if that behavior persists and that person doesn't get the help they need to grow and to develop, what was once kind of harmed you, once they recognize it and they, kind of, oh, I'm sorry, if they can continue to do it and it can become a malicious act. So you've got to be mindful of the relationships that you have, what people are doing to harm you, because once they recognize they do it, you've made them aware of that and they continue to do it, it now becomes an intent. It now becomes an intent. And I love what Missy just said. They feed off of you. Absolutely. They feed off of you. I'm telling you, they will starve you and suck you dry. So the first thing I want to say to you, and I'm going to give you an example, a biblical example of this, of toxic relationships. Now hear me. It doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. When it comes to toxic relationships, you're going to experience them. Not only that, the way that it plays out no matter what your faith is. It doesn't matter what your faith is. It still plays out pretty much the same way. So the first thing I want to tell you, and I want you to think about, all right, is that toxic people don't wake up thinking about being toxic. They don't wake up thinking, oh, let me be toxic today. Let me be an unhealthy person and let me have unhealthy relationships. The reason I want to frame it this way is because I want us, right, those who are hopefully healthier in the relationship, I want us to be able to recognize the toxicity, recognize the person, the behavior of the person without harming the person, without looking at the person negatively. And it's hard. I'm telling you what I know. Like I've struggled with this when I've been betrayed by people. And that's one of the reasons why I want to share this. It was funny when I was putting this together. Y'all, I had to really kind of repent in my mind, and I had to really be like, God, help me. Because there are people who have betrayed me. Their toxicity has infiltrated my life, and I allowed my response to it to start bringing up a root of bitterness. We'll talk about that later, but you have to be careful because people who are toxic they don't wake up thinking, let me be toxic today. That's not, it's like people who use drugs. They're not thinking, hey, let me be an addict today. And so when you think of it from that perspective, it's easier to give a little bit of grace there, a little bit of grace, a little bit of mercy. And so what happens is people who are toxic have often filtered the experiences in their life, the pain in their life, the trauma in their life through a negative lens, right? Through a lens of simply their nature. I always say their nature without God. There's not a God to help direct an understanding of, hey, this is why this happened. This is to really help you think through that process. And so they're looking through the lens of their pain. They're looking through the lens of their trauma. They're looking through the lens of their hurt. And they're filtering everything through that dirty lens, basically. And if you filter anything through a dirty lens, you're not going to see clearly. It's just what it is. So no matter what you say or do with toxic people, you can't make them see clearly. They have to clean their own glasses. You can't clean their glasses. They have to clean their own glasses. And so I'm going to stop here. Let me read a couple of the comments. Interesting. Missy says this. They're surviving off of their behavior towards you. That is so true. That is so true. Um, so let me say this. Let me give you an example in the Bible about this. So there's David and Saul, right? They're both in the Bible and they have this relationship. And anybody who doesn't know, I'll give you a quick overview. Saul is eventually becomes a king of Israel. David eventually replaces him and takes his throne. Saul was chosen to be king. God just chose him. The people of Israel wanted a king. And so God gave them one and he just chose Saul. Saul didn't do anything to earn it. He didn't go through king school. He didn't get an education. He was just chosen, right? He was just chosen to be king. All right. Just like David. David was just chosen to be king. All right. And so, when Saul became king and he and David, was his musician, basically, he played the harp for him. David eventually there was a war. Saul was afraid to fight it. David fought the war. Everybody was like, oh my God, David's the man. He's amazing. I mean, he slaughtered this big giant and everybody just loved him. Of course, Saul gets jealous and he tries to kill him and the rest is history. But here's what I want to tell you about Saul and David. Both Saul and David had somewhat similar backgrounds, right? Saul was from the smallest tribe in Israel, and he was the smallest clan. It was a clan that was the least of all the clans within the tribe, all right? So he had this sense of rejection and being small. Anyway, as a matter of fact, when the prophet Samuel went to him and said, hey, God, you're going to be anointed to be king. And he said to him, why would you even talk to me? Why would you even choose me? Why would you choose me? I'm like from the smallest tribe and the least of the clans in the tribe. Like, why would you even choose me? Another thing is, Saul was also extremely handsome. The Bible says he was handsome and he was a foot taller than everybody in Israel. First of all, that's a nation, y'all. A nation of people. He's taller than everybody in the nation and he's handsome, which means there's attention brought to him. So here's the thing. We often think people who either look good or we consider have it going on are secure people. And they're not always secure. Sometimes they're the most insecure people. And the very thing that we may look at and say, oh my God, I wish I had, or oh my God, isn't that amazing, is the very thing that makes them insecure. Okay. And so all the attention and the pressure makes them more insecure. All right. And so Saul already had low expectations of himself. He already had low expectations of himself. You know how I know? Because when he was anointed to be king, the prophet came. Samuel was like, hey, announcing, he went to all the tribes of Israel. He said, hey, announcing your new king, Saul. And the Bible says Saul was hiding behind a baggage cart when people were looking for him. So he's been given this position. He's been thrust into a new position without feeling secure in this position, not trusting in the creator who created him to do the position. He's trusting in himself. He doesn't feel adequate and he's insecure. He has low expectations. And now he's someone that everybody has been staring at and looking at. And now he's king. All right. Now I want to take you to David. David, on the other hand, it's not much different. David, the Bible says, was also very handsome. David, but he was also rejected by his father and by his brothers. I mean, when Samuel came, because after Saul was no longer going to be king because he messed up, and Samuel came to find a new king, Jesse had these sons, and he's looking at all these sons, but David's in the field tending the sheep. And Samuel had to say to him, do you have any more sons? In other words, he didn't even bring David up to say, hey, I had, these are all my sons. David wasn't even thought about. He was already rejected by his father. He wasn't even thought of. And then when he went to fight Goliath, his brother asked him, why are you even here? Why are you even here? So very similar backgrounds. But here's the difference. Saul internalized his filter, his own thinking about himself, not his higher thinking, his thinking about himself was very much that he's insecure. He became jealous. He had low expectations. And as a result of that, he tried to kill David. When somebody else started to one-up him as in his mind, right? He saw David as one-upping him. Now he wants to kill him. David, on the other hand, who's also been rejected, who's also had some issues, has spent time with God in the fields while he was being rejected. He had spent time with the one who created him to get to know himself, to get a level of security so that he could be a whole person. Not that he was perfect. And so David was courageous. He wasn't jealous of Saul. As a matter of fact, even when Saul tried to kill him, he did not retaliate. I know that sounds crazy. This man's trying to kill him. He didn't retaliate. Well, when you're secure in yourself, you don't need to. When you're secure, you don't need to retaliate. You might get justice. Getting justice and retaliation are two very different things. Retaliation is self-centered and it's about you getting vengeance because you want the other person to pay. Justice is them paying for what is wrong, period. And so you have to ask yourself, right? Do you want to get people back or do you just want justice? Because if you're wanting to get people back and there's a vengeance in you, then you got to check your own heart for toxicity. You've got to check your own heart for that. So let me look at some of the comments. Sherry said, I think we have all been toxic at some point in our lives. That's why healing is so important. Absolutely. 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 So I want to continue. Let me ask you a question. Well, I won't ask you a question yet. All right. So I want to make a point here. When you're looking at toxic people or you have people in your life right now that are toxic and you know they're sucking you dry, they're feeding off of you. All right. I do want to ask you this question. Might sting a little bit. Why are they still there? Why are you still entertaining the relationship if it is toxic? Now, if it's somebody you're married to, if it's somebody you live with or like a family member where you can't get away from, that's a different conversation. That's all about your mindset and how you interact with that person. But if they're not somebody you have to be in a relationship, like a friend, or even a relationship that you, a male, a dating relationship that you're not married to, why are you still engaging? Why are you still engaging in toxic relationships if you know they're unhealthy and they're sucking you dry? Because I would submit to you, there is something in your heart that is also feeding off of that toxic relationship. There is something in you that is feeding a need in that toxic relationship. And has anybody experienced that where there's people in your life that you are like, I just need to let this go, but you, for some reason, you just can't seem to let that thing go, or you're struggling to let it go? If that's you, then let me tell you, there's something that you got to work through. That's not the person. The person who's toxic, let me just tell you this. And this is my second point. Let me tell you this. People who are toxic are trying to preserve themselves. It's rarely about you. One thing I've learned is people who are toxic are trying to protect themselves. They're trying to protect their image. They're trying to protect what they feel is their self-worth or value. And you just happen to be on the other side. In other words, if there was somebody else with your same characteristics or whatever it is about you that threatens them, if there was somebody else with those same things, they treat the other person the same way, which means it's not personal. It's only personal if they do it to you and you only. Then there's something about you only. But most toxic people are toxic. It doesn't matter what relationship they find themselves in. Anybody who has something that is seemingly a threat to them, anybody, they're gonna spew the venom. They're gonna spew the poison because it's about protecting themselves. It's not about you. And let me tell you something. Here's how you get over toxic relationships. The first thing is you recognize it ain't about me. This person has an issue, but it ain't about me. And I'm not going to make it my own. As my girlfriend Tasha, who's on here, says, put the ball's in their court. It belongs to them. I'm not owning it. I'm not owning your toxicity. I'm not owning your stuff. And so I had to learn this. And it's taken time, especially when you've been betrayed. And of course, you're betrayed by somebody you know, somebody that you trust. Because if it's, you don't know and trust them, it's not betrayal, right? But when you've been betrayed by someone, and it's because of their toxic behavior, they're toxic anyway, and you stayed in a relationship way too long anyway, but nonetheless, it's all about them. It's really all about them. And so when you've been betrayed by somebody and you're still trying to figure that thing out and hold on to it, cut it. It's not even about you. Just when I say cut it, what I'm saying is cut off trying to figure that thing out. Let that person be. Let them find themselves and get the healing they need. You don't own someone else's behavior. And when you own their behavior, you then are at risk of becoming a toxic person, becoming a person who's bitter. And so I want you to think about that. And I'm going to tell you how I know. Because when Saul and David had this interaction, David's playing the harp for Saul. He loves him. My guess is, if you read the story, David probably saw Saul as a father figure. He didn't have that really from his father. So he had this close relationship with Saul. And, he was very close with Saul's son, Jonathan. So he probably felt like family at some point. And now this man is trying to kill him. Like, I've experienced this where I've been in a relationship with someone, a healthy relationship, so I thought was healthy, right? And this person betrayed me. It was like a Saul and David where I'm helping, I'm doing all this stuff. And then out of the blue, it seemed like it was ugly, right? Even though Saul tried to kill David, do you not know David never retaliated even when he had the chance? He didn't retaliate. He trusted God for justice. And it doesn't mean God won't tell us to do things for justice. Like, if we've got to, do certain things, whether it's go to court or whether it's, write a letter or do something for justice sake. But what he did not do is retaliate. As a matter of fact, Saul fell asleep. All of his men were asleep or they weren't watching. And David's men were like, his boys were like, you can get him right now. You have access to him right now. And David told his boys, like, nah, that's not how I get down. Because toxic people who are not toxic don't do toxic things to other people. They don't try to get on the get back. They're not all for the revenge or retaliation. And so even though David had a chance to kill him, he did not. Not only, listen, y'all, this is a whole nother level. Not only did he protect Saul's life, he protected his reputation. I cut my own self here, just so you know. If I had some Band-Aids, I would hand them out virtually. Seriously. David protected Saul's reputation. In other words, what he did, even though Saul was saying and doing all kind of stuff to David, you know what David did? He spoke highly of him. So much so, when Saul died, David gave the funeral for Saul, again, the man who tried to kill him. He was on the run from this man for almost 15 years. Almost 15 years, 15 to 20 years, he was on the run from Saul. All right, he was on the run from being assassinated. But when this man died, he talked about the great warrior that he was, the great king that he was. He honored him. And here's the thing, he didn't lie about it. He honored what he could and laid to rest what he couldn't. He honored what he could and laid to rest what he couldn't. He honored the great things about Saul. He eulogized him, which means to speak well of him. And whatever was not good about Saul, he let that thing stay buried. Do we do that? Do we, when people harm us, when toxic people harm us, do we still protect their reputation? I didn't say that we let them walk over us, but do we still protect their reputation and not speak negative about them? Listen, I'm telling you right now, I am guilty as charged, y'all. This thing cut me up one side and down the other because it doesn't feel good. And none of us are perfect, so we're all working through this. So I'm sharing this because if we're going to flow in our divine purpose, we have to understand it's not just toxic people who keep us from flowing. It's our response to toxic people that keep us from flowing. It's our response, it's our retaliation, it's our speaking negative of them because we're still responsible for our behavior regardless of what they do. And what David believed was God was going to take care of that. Do we trust God to fight for us, to defend us, and to do what he tells us to do for defense and not what we want to do? Y'all, I'm telling you, this is tough. Let me take a break real quick and let me get some of these comments. Yeah, Tanya, this is true. I suspect the toxic person is feeding something, perhaps a void of some sort. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to tell you one of the things that toxic people feed is our need to be fixers, our need to be validated, our need to be accepted. So when we have relationships of people, and we listen. We know about, I don't know, after we've connected with them for some time, we know they're toxic. We know they're toxic. We know it's unhealthy. We know when they text or call, we're like, oh my God, it takes so much energy to answer the phone, or we don't answer it. Or we got to be like, I'm going to text you later. You already know that. If you're doing, listen, y'all, here's what I want to really get out in this Facebook Live tonight. I want us to put the spotlight back on us and not on the toxic people, because the toxic relationships are only draining us because we let them. Now, again, I'm not talking about if you're married to somebody and you're living with somebody and you can't get away. But even in that, there's choices of how we respond to it. It's a little different. And so I don't want to go into that tonight. Maybe we'll do that at a different time of how to deal with toxic like relationships if you're married or if you're living with someone. That's kind of it's a different ball of wax. But the choice still remains how you deal with it. Your response is still your choice, right? But I'm talking about relationships where we don't have to deal with it. We don't have to continue in these persistent, unhealthy relationships. We like, sometimes we want to just fix stuff. It was me. I want to help. I want to feel like I'm validated. That was my own issues with rejection that I had to work through. That wasn't about that person. Now, were they toxic? Yep, they were. And some of them still toxic. But the grace of God in my life had to show me like, yo, you were toxic at one point too. Your need to fix them fed into that toxicity. So don't feed the beast. When you give in and let toxic people take advantage of you, walk all over you, and then you crying and moaning, but you go right back, you're feeding the beast. Starve it. Starve it. I like what Tasha said. Missy says, yeah. Oh, sorry guys. Ooh, pulled that off. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry. How did I do that? I don't know what I just did, guys. Sorry. Maybe I'll put my comments up over here. Okay. Yeah, they play the victim. Let me tell you. Yes, indeedy. They play the victim. Let me see if I can fix this, guys. I don't know how sorry. Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys. Didn't quite know what I did here. But anyway, yes, they play the victim. They play the victim. They play the victim. And so here's the other thing that I realized when you're dealing with toxic people, right? They are intensely selfish. Again, they're intensely selfish. When Saul was going after David, it was about Saul's reputation. They are intensely selfish. And you can't fix that for them. Listen to me, hear me. You cannot fix people. You can support them, you can encourage them, and you can pray for them. You cannot fix them because you did not create them. It's just that simple. Even if you harm them, let's say somebody is struggling with something because you actually harmed them. What if that was you still can't fix it. You can apologize, but the harm that was done has to be healed. It has to be healed, and you can't heal people. You don't have the power to heal people. Only God can heal the heart because God created it. God created it. And so I want us to be mindful of that. All right. And so the first thing is we talked about people don't wake up wanting to be toxic. Right. So we got to be gracious and understand that their histories are and their trauma has been filtered through their own lens, through their own pain, and they're just taking it out on you, which goes to the second point that they're trying to preserve themselves. They're trying to protect themselves. It's about their self-preservation. You happen to be in the way of that. If you keep feeding into it, you've got to ask yourself, am I too toxic? Do I have issues that I need healing, right? So that I'm not feeding into this consistent behavior in someone else. I love what Joyce says. Some of what you are describing are mental health behaviors stemming from narcissism and bipolar disorders that require therapy. Absolutely. I had a friend that struggled with some of those things. And let me tell you, unless they're willing to get the help they need through therapy and medication for some people, they can't. And this is a point that I want to tell you. The third point I want to tell you. Toxic people cannot flourish in healthy relationships. If you're struggling with mental health issues, particularly narcissism, bipolar disorder, those types of disorders, it's hard to flourish in healthy relationships. There's a mental health issue. There's a chemical challenge that this person may be dealing with. They need therapy and help. You are not their therapist. You are not their therapist. They need therapy, like professional therapy, right? Love on them and let that thing be. And so you need to understand that if you're trying to fix this person, the relationship can't flourish. It will never be healthy. It will never provide you what you need. And I want to explain something. There's a difference between a toxic relationship and an unfruitful relationship. And we can't, what's the word I want to use? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Conflict the two. We can't, I forgot, what am I trying to say, y'all? You know what I'm trying to say. We cannot conflate the two. Toxic relationships and unfruitful relationships are two different things. Unfruitful relationships just means you're in a relationship that's not bearing any fruit. It's not beneficial to you. It's not helping you. It may or may not be sucking you dry. It may be nothing. You're not gaining anything from it. You're not giving a whole lot to it. It's just unfruitful. The thing that is taking from you more than anything is just your time. It's time that's not being stewarded or managed well. So people who you're in a relationship with that's unfruitful, it may not be because they're toxic. That's more of a you issue. Sorry. If you're continuing to entertain people and it's an unfruitful relationship, that's something you're choosing to do for some reason. They're feeling something in your life. And what I'm recognizing is if we have these relationships in our life and they've been persistent, I want us to focus more on us. What is it about us that we need to work through that we're not entertaining this? Are we afraid that they're going to reject us? Are we afraid they're going to see us a certain way if we say, I'm sorry, this isn't helpful, or if we disconnect or reposition them? We'll talk about that in a second. What are we afraid of by not letting go of these relationships? So I want us to think about that. There it is, compartmentalize. Thank you, Missy, because I couldn't get my thoughts right, y'all. And so I want to talk to you a little bit more about these relationships that it can't flourish. I'll go back to David and Saul. Listen, David did everything. Saul, you were like a father to me. Saul, can't we just, kind of make amends? And Saul, can't we do this? And Saul, can't we do this? And Saul was like, sure. He told him yes. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks for sparing my life. We can be cool again. And right after that, shortly after, tried to kill him again. Here's the thing. If toxic people don't get help, no matter what they say, they're still not healthy. So if there is a change of vocabulary, meaning I'm sorry, I won't keep doing this again, but there's not a change of behavior, they are still a toxic person, or they still have toxic behaviors. It's just what it is. And I've made this mistake. They just keep apologizing and apologizing and apologizing. Okay. But here's what I realized. Every time they injured me, right? And they continue to do it in the same place over and over again or in the same way. I thought I was forgiving them because they kept saying they were sorry, but I wasn't. It was piling up in me. And then finally, it was it. No more. I'm not taking it anymore. And what I realized was, get this, y'all, get this. I had to be the one to go back and apologize because what I realized was I allowed that behavior, that pain, and that hurt to take root in my heart. I had to deal with that. It does not absolve them of what they did, but it's not about them, y'all. It's about us. I had to do with what's right because if I don't, the free flowing grace of God, the abundance of God, the prosperity of God, everything that I'm wanting in my life is stuck because of my lack of forgiveness towards a person, even though they don't even think they did anything wrong. That's when you grow up. That's when you grow up. And I cannot overstate this. Examine your heart more than you examine the other person. Examine your own heart more than you examine the other person. Because as you do that, you're going to be able to find the healing you need so that you don't become toxic because they're going to keep injuring you in the same place. And it doesn't feel good, y'all. You know that. It doesn't feel good. Has anybody ever had to do that? Even though the person was wrong, they did something wrong, it wasn't your fault, but you realize you still were wrong in the way that you responded. Have you ever went back to apologize? While I'm waiting on that, I'm going to see what Span says. I was around let me put it up here. I was around a person for so many years, I didn't recognize that I was becoming toxic because I was with them for so long. Oh my God, that's so true. I was with them for so long. When God showed me myself, I got rid of them and now know how to see toxicity, especially in men. Having a strong personality does not negate us from being in toxic relationships. Ooh, yes. Just because we're strong women or we have strong personalities or characteristics doesn't mean that we don't fall into those same types of traps. We all got work to do, y'all. We all got to be healed somewhere in our heart. That's just life. Life is always writing on us, as my brother says. Life's always writing on us. We're always being impacted by the pain of life, right? And so we're not exempt. We're never exempt from growing a heart of bitterness or being toxic if we don't even check and examine our own selves. So here's the last thing I want to say. So what do you do with all this? And I gave you a lot of stuff, just kind of a general conversation. Good stuff in the comments too, y'all. So what do you do with all this? What do you do with the awareness that, you know what, there are toxic people in my life. I've allowed it to persist. I need to do something about it. It's not healthy for them. I got to check my own heart to make sure that I'm not allowing this person to persist in, this toxicity in my life. What do I do with this? And I'm gonna write a blog post on this. I wrote one before. I think I'll refresh it and put it back on my page sometime this week or next week. Here's what I do. You reevaluate and then you reposition. Somebody type that in the comments. Reevaluate and then you reposition. Here's what you're gonna do. Here's your call to action. Here's the work that you can do while we sitting at home and Rona's out here in these streets. We can take some time to evaluate the relationships that we are in. And I want you to look at the relationships that you are in, and I want you to identify whether or not they're toxic or just unfruitful, right? Because, I personally don't believe in cutting people off. Now, I'm not saying that there's never a moment for that. Maybe there is. I personally, it's my personal opinion, I don't really cut people off because they're not my people. Like, I didn't create them, and I don't know the history. I don't know, the history all the time, but I don't know the future. I don't know if, they run into something or someone that helps them grow into who they really are supposed to be. So I'm always hopeful for people. However, I might not cut you off, but I will reposition you. You may have been in my top 5 slot. You might go to number 10. And I still love you very, very much. I still pray for you. There are people who have betrayed me that I pray for. It was hard. It's still hard sometimes, but I pray for them because I have to keep my heart pure, right? So I reevaluate the relationship. Is it unfruitful? Is the relationship harming me? Does it cause me tears? Am I crying a lot because of this? Is my self-worth, being reduced because of this? The way that I feel about myself, am I being more self-condemning because of this? Am I, less gracious with myself and other people because of this? Am I seeing myself in a negative light because of this relationship? Am I always questioning myself because this person's always saying something that causes me to question myself? Now here, I want to put a disclaimer here. Sometimes people are doing that and it's your stuff. Like you're struggling with your own kind of development, your own spiritual, emotional, mental development. And people can say and do things that harm you because you're in an unhealthy place. I'm not talking about that. And you have to evaluate that. But if this person has a persistent behavior and this person's toxic, and here's how you know. Everybody else tells you the same thing. Yo, why do you keep, I'm laughing because my friends have said this to me. Why do you keep doing that? Or why do you keep letting this person do this? Or why, why this or why that? If other people recognize the toxicity, it's probably because they're toxic. And so I say that to say, evaluate the relationship. And if you identify that this relationship is toxic or even unfruitful, reposition it. They should not take a high place in your life right now. Not if you're trying to flow in your divine. Not if you're trying to really move into things that you're called to in your business, your ministry, your work, your career. Are you kidding me? You don't have time for it. Now, how do you reposition someone without hurting their feelings? Well, I don't know if you can not hurt their feelings because their feelings might be hurt. You can't control that, but you can do it in love and be gracious. And we all know 1 Corinthians, I think it's 13, right? The love chapter. If you go through 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and you look at how love is patient, love is kind, love doesn't keep any records of wrong, right? God is not keeping a record of my wrongs. So I can't keep a record of the other person's. Not if I'm going to give a real unconditional type of love. And I can give an unconditional type of love and still have this person in a different position in my life. As a matter of fact, it is love to them and to me that they're no longer in this place because I am feeding something in them that doesn't need to be fed and I am being harmed by it. So to show true love to myself and to them, it is best that we be repositioned. Right? So the way that you do this, and this is the way that I've done it. I had a conversation one time and I shared my heart. I shared my truth. They didn't agree, whatever. It wasn't contentious. I said what I had to say and I let it go. And that was that. And I was done. It hurt. It was painful. It was challenging. And I missed a person, but I have to understand there are certain times in my life when people have just got to be repositioned because it is what it is. Right? And so there, you have to identify who in your life is not bringing anything to the table, a table that you already have set. Like you guys should be coming together with something. Male, even friendships. I'm not talking just male and female. Yeah, even friendships or just relational things. And so I want you to think about that. Reevaluate and reposition. I'm not cutting you off because it could be 10 years down the road. We rekindle, you come to some awareness and we recognize some things. We talk, we're good. And guess what? We might rekindle. We might just be repositioned again. I don't know. But here's what I do know. Recognize the season you're in and recognize the people that you need in the season. And if they're not in the season, it is okay to reposition them. And what David did was David had to go on about his business and he had to do what he had to do to be the warrior that God called him to be developed, to be developed as the king he needed to be until it was time for him to take the throne. You can't keep running after people who are toxic and unhealthy. There's something wrong with you if you're doing that. You've got to evaluate where you are. And if you're doing that, I can guarantee you something. You're not flowing in your divine. You're not flowing in your divine purpose because you're too busy running after dead weight. Running after dead weight. And if you're running after dead weight, you can't flow. They do not coincide. They do not coincide. Let's look at some comments. I've adopted this as well. This makes a huge difference on so many levels. I'm thinking she talks about reevaluating and repositioning. It's one of the best things I feel like God has taught me. I like what Heather says. I've repositioned people, but I've never cut someone off completely. Listen, Heather, I agree. I don't get down like that. I just don't. Even when somebody might cut me off, hey, I'm not responsible for them. I'm just responsible for me. Right. And so I don't get down like that. I do not. I think people have inherent value and there's always an opportunity for them to be different. I don't know their heart. I don't know their soul. So I never want to take that position of kind of the creator or the authority over them. I don't know. And so let's be gracious and merciful with other people while they're going through their stuff. Let them be. Now let them go down their road. I'm not telling you to engage and indulge in unhealthy relationships. I'm saying reevaluate and, reposition. Love and leave if you got to. Do what you got to do, but you do it in love. You do it with care. You do it with grace. You do it with mercy. You do it the same way that God did it with us, right? He did not cut us off. He just lovingly drew us. And if we don't want to be pursued, he doesn't kick us to the curb and he still always pursues us. And the way that you pursue toxic people is through prayer. You don't pursue them necessarily in the natural. The way I pursue toxic people, and I'm not pursuing to have a relationship with them, I am pursuing so they can be healthy. My prayer is that they can get the help they need to be healthy and that I can continue to grow in a healthy relationship myself. So I'm not placing blame. They're better or worse. They're just different. They're in a different place, a different season, and we don't know what's happened in their lives to cause them to be the place that they are. So, be kind. Be gracious, and it's hard. It's not easy, but it's possible. And I guarantee you, when you do that, you are going to see exponential flow in your life because you open the floodgates. I think one of my Flow 2.0 students is on here. And one of the things that she shared with me, and I won't say her name, is that when she forgave, it was like everything opened up for her. Everything opened up for her. And that's what we have to do. Once we forgive, we can see clear. Because guess what, y'all? When we have unforgiveness in our heart, we're filtering things through the same dirty lens as that toxic person. We ain't no better, y'all. Through the same filthy lens. So we got to clean our own lens so that we can see clearly. And when we do, we'll recognize, oh, this person was just struggling. That's their stuff. Love. And then you actually start to feel, not sorry for them. You don't feel sorry for them like they're a victim. Oh my goodness. But you actually feel compassion. That's the word. You feel compassion towards them. Because but for the grace of God, it could be you. But for the grace of God, it could be me. And so I'm learning that this has been a year or more in the making with me as I've been, betrayed in the last year or so by a few people. And it was out of the blue. I don't consider them my haters. They're not hating on me, and maybe they are. It doesn't really matter. What I recognize is they're in a different journey where they've been injured and harmed too, and they got to work through their stuff. It doesn't mean I don't want justice to prevail. Now, hear me now. I want justice to prevail, but I don't want to be my own defender. I want to give that over to God. And when I give that over to God, it frees my heart up to love and not hate and not be bitter. and not be malicious. So let's look at some comments, and then we will hop off here. So one of the top lessons you taught me: no longer do I cut people off. I replant them in my life's garden. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because guess what, y'all? Those toxic people have also helped you grow in ways that you didn't even realize. It helped make some things, made you aware of some things that you didn't realize. It made you aware that you might be a fixer, that you might be needy, that you might be struggling with rejection. That's why you're dealing with them. So them being in your life, God still used it for his good, for your good and for his glory. So we can be grateful to that. This is my sister Tanya. She said, Daddy used to teach if everyone whom you genuinely love you and have your best interest at heart is telling you the same thing, you may just have to look. You just may want to look at that. I'm sorry, I can read, y'all. And it's true. If everybody's telling you this person's toxic, the person's toxic, y'all. They're toxic. It's just what it is. And I shouldn't say they're toxic. They have toxic behaviors. Michelle, help me, Lord, because I did cut some people off in the past. Girl, we all have. It's okay. It's okay. Now just go back and just start praying for them and just, be kind and be gracious. And if the Lord says to say something or do something, be open, obey, do what you got to do to keep relationships healthy. Naisha says, why does dealing with a toxic person almost feel like an addiction? I can tell you why, Naisha. And this is not, I'm sure you're not the only one who has this question, because it does feel like that. Like you can't get over them. They're always, it's like you want to, but it's an addiction because it's something in you. It's not the toxicity, the person, it's you. There is something in you that is feeding off of the drug that person is giving you. There is something, that toxic behavior that you continue to latch onto, that you continue to entertain. It's because there's something in you, baby, that's not healed. And because there's a lack of healing in your soul, right? And your soul is your mind, your thinking, your thoughts, your emotions, your will. Because there's an emotional probably hole there, and there's some thinking that you've allowed to be persistent in your mind, you are continuing to feed off of that unhealthy behavior. And so here's the thing, guys, we can't even be mad at the toxic person for being who they are. They're doing what they do, and they're only doing what we allow them to do. So I would say to you, Naisha, what I would say to you and anybody who is struggling with being addicted to toxic people is you got, as my girlfriend Tasha says, you've got to do your own inner work. You've got to get to a place. You got to either connect with people, Naisha, join the Flow Tribe Live Facebook group. And I'll be, doing more stuff in there. But you've got to identify in your own soul, where am I lacking? Where do I need healing? Where do I need God to provide healing in my soul so I can close that gap? I can close that place that's feeding off of that unhealthy behavior. That's why it feels like an addiction, because it kind of is one. And there's probably some codependency there. That's a whole nother level. And we'll get into that. If you're in the Facebook group, I'm going to be doing, my lives are going to be moving to there, and I'm going to be doing some behind the scene live stuff to give you guys unpack a little bit more what we talk about on our live show. So I love what Miss Joy says. Great teaching, Monica. It's evident that you eat the word of God, stay empowered and yielded. Oh, I have mad respect for you. Bless God. I love Miss Joy's mad respect. Thank you for joining. And yeah, I do love the word of God. And I do eat it because it has been giving nourishment to my soul in a way that's been healing my own heart. And I want to give you guys what I'm getting. I want to give you guys and share with you guys what God is teaching me and how I'm learning to flow in ways I've never been able to flow. I want that for you as well. Tanya says, most toxic people have roots to which their toxicity comes from. The mistake we often make is that we hang on to help them hang on to help them try to figure it out. Yes. So we play therapists. We're trying to help them. Let me figure out what happened when you were a child. Let me figure out this. That's not your role. Stay in your lane. That's a therapist's lane. That's God's lane, but it ain't your lane. Stay in your lane. Love on them, encourage them, support them, unless God has given you a specific thing to do for or with them. I'm telling you, it is, it is a trick of the enemy to keep you from moving forward. It's a distraction to you. And let me tell y'all this. The enemy does not come to us with a pitchfork and with a red suit on or with horns or that looks like a beast. He comes as an angel of light. Do you not think that he is bringing people into your life who are toxic simply to distract you from the flow of God's work in your life? And you're busy trying to help. But here's the great thing. Even though he's trying to distract, God is trying to reveal. The enemy's trying to distract you, but God's trying to reveal and discipline you. And he's teaching you, hey, there's some areas in your life that you need to go ahead and deal with. I got to deal with these areas, or this is going to really be an issue as you grow in your flow. Right? So I want you to pay attention to that. You can't fix people. Tasha, I'm going to have you on to talk about that. Tasha, you will. Tasha's she works in mental health and behavioral health and in addiction, all kind of stuff. And she's oh my gosh, she's also lived this stuff. I mean, she's lived it. And so Tasha, will you come on? Maybe I'll do next week. Will you come on soon and talk about the addiction of toxic relationships? I'm putting you on the spot. But if you guys are interested in that, comment in the comment box and let me know if that's something you're interested in. And I will definitely make that happen. I will definitely make that happen. Could we talk about the many faces of addiction? Absolutely. I like what Sherry said. I guess I never shed my toxic because their toxic is still affecting me. Ooh, yes, Sherry. Yes. And here's the thing. What we find ourselves doing is we keep thinking about and focusing on what they did to us, as opposed to us being healed from what they did to us. And we've got to put it in the right place. The spirit that was driving the toxic behavior is a spirit of the enemy. It's not the person. It's a spirit behind the person. And it plays through the person. And so that's why we have to disconnect from the person, because there's something operating in the soul of the person that's affecting us. And so in the mindset makeover challenge we're doing right now, I'm teaching people how to renew their thinking and to change their thinking so they can identify these things in their lives that is drawing this toxic behavior and recognizing the same thing in other people. And so Sherry, I know you're on your healing journey, girl. You're doing some great things. And so I think our focus has to be, let me get rid of it regardless of what happens to them. Let me shed my toxic behavior. Let me go on my own journey of healing. If they never apologize, if they never ask for forgiveness, if they never even admit they did something wrong, can I still go through my journey of healing? Because you have to if you want to flow in your divine purpose. If not, you will be stuck. And we've got to break free from being stuck in life. Let's see. Let me some more comments. Looks like Tanya said, yes, Taj, would love to have you address this. Y'all is popping in these comments tonight. Popping in these comments. Yeah, we can go ahead and open that session up, Naisha. I'm down with it. Listen, I'm here to make sure that I give you guys what you need. I'm down with making sure we get there. We got to get there, guys. I am 100% confident that God wants to do an amazing work in us. I know every person watching this. This is not a blanket statement. Like, I really believe that every one of us have a unique purpose that brings value to this earth, to the circle that God has placed us in. We have a sphere of influence. We can't stay stuck. We have generations, guys, generations who are waiting on us to be unstuck. Little baby girls and little boys who are looking for healing and wholeness that they're stuck in because of us. They're wanting to be free. We're seeing this generationally persist, right? And we've got to break that cycle in us, in this toxic behavior, and which is really us, right? Having healing that needs to take place in us. We've got to work through that. We've got to work through that. And so, all right. Oh, yes, sis. Michelle says, God will use our vertical relationship with him to purify and redeem us, and our horizontal relationships with people. Guys, listen, that is the key. The only way that you can love the way God says love is that you accept and receive the love that he's given you. That's another session. Maybe I'll do a series on this, because part of the toxic relationship issue is your mindset. You don't even love yourself the way that God loves you, right? Love is patient. Love is kind. Love keeps no records of wrong. Yet you keep records of your own wrong. You're not patient with your own self. You're not kind to your own self. As a result of that, right? You draw people who are the same way, and some of us give it out. So as we are purified through God and his love permeates our heart and we receive it and accept that we are fully loved and accepted by him, it changes the way we relate and connect with other people. That's why you have people who can forgive someone who's raped or harmed a loved one or someone they're really close to, or killed someone they're really close to, because they're operating with a different level of love, a higher level of love, a love that does not come from feeling or human effort. It's a love that is divine. And a love that is divine will breed out toxicity every time, every time, every time. And so you've got to accept the love that God has already given you so that you won't put yourself in situations where you can't be loved, where people won't give you that love, where you won't respect yourself enough. And you can still love them. It makes a big difference. It changes everything about how you are able to do God's work in the earth. Everything, y'all, everything. Woo, I'm getting excited. Y'all know I get excited because it's good to me. It's good to me. I like what Heather said. Yo, Heather she should be a comedian. I love this girl. And I love this woman, I should say. An apology would be nice, but you shouldn't need the apology. Waiting for it will have you stuck. And she's right. It would be nice, guys. It would be nice if I had $1 million right now too, right? But where we are, it would be nice if we could go out and restaurants weren't closed. It would be nice, but we can't. And so what are we going to do with what we have? Right? How do we flourish where we are? How do we flourish where we are? Yes, the self-esteem, self-love issue must be fixed. Absolutely. That's the biggest part of toxicity, is our own lack of healing. The reason why people are toxic is because they're not whole. And I'm going to have to put my brother's Facebook Live. I might put it in our group. He did a live last night. My brother, Pastor Michael Bell of Radiant Church. And he talked, maybe it was the night before, he talked about our holiness. I forgot how he said it, but basically our wholeness comes from our holiness, or vice versa. I can't remember how he said it. But what he was basically talking about is, as we become whole in Christ and the work that God is doing in our life, right? Our holiness, our perfection in Christ allows us to love other people. Our wholeness comes because Christ has already made us whole. And when we accept that wholeness, we accept who we are holy, we are set apart. We're not perfect, right? But I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference in the way that you love and relate to people. And so if you're struggling with toxic people in your life, and I'm going to hop off here. If you're struggling with toxic people in your life and you're not quite sure what to do, you want to reevaluate and you want to reposition. Reevaluate and reposition. You reposition by either having a conversation. I would say not send a text, but for some people, you just don't have to keep engaging. You just don't have to keep engaging. You could just say, you know what, this is the last conversation we'll probably have. For some people, just don't keep engaging. Just cut it off. Just cut the conversations off. Don't cut them off, but you can cut the conversations off. Just stop it. Right? So, thank you guys for joining me tonight and hanging in here with me pretty late. Thank you for all the loves and the hearts and all the good stuff. Taj, it looks like we're going to have to get together and come up with this, talking about relationships and the addiction of unhealthy relationships and kind of what that looks like, and unpack that a bit, and even talk about accepting and receiving love so that we don't find ourselves prey to these relationships and what that looks like. And so, guys, we'll do that. We will do that. So I'm going to encourage you to do two things. One, go to facebook.com/Flow Tribe Live, and join the Facebook community there. I'll be adding more stuff in there, and kind of after the live show was what we're going to kind of be working on, so we can get a whole bunch of good stuff and fun stuff going on in our Facebook group. The second thing is, if you're still interested in Flow 2.0, we are doing a mindset makeover challenge, a 40-day challenge. We just started last week, and we're just preparing and getting our hearts right, because over the next several weeks, we're going to be really intentional of demolishing limiting beliefs, persistent limiting beliefs, and disruptive behaviors that's keeping us from moving into things that God has ordained. And so if you want to be a part of Flow 2.0, join, go to monicaspate.com, click on the link, join, and you can join Flow 2.0, find out what it's about, and join the Mindset Makeover Challenge. And so I'm connecting with them every day. As a matter of fact, we're having a live call tomorrow if you're part of Flow 2.0, and if not, join tonight, join tomorrow, because we're having a live call tomorrow night at 7:45. Get in on that challenge, and I'm going to walk with you consistently, daily, to help you overcome limiting beliefs and disruptive behaviors so that you're no longer kind of living out this unhealthy, toxic life or relationships with people who really aren't there to see the good for you. All right. So thank you guys for joining me, and thanks for all the love on the page tonight. I'm excited to be with you. I'm excited to be back. And next week we'll be back. I think we're going to continue this relationship series. So Taj, I'll call you because we're going to have to get this thing going. I love you guys. Until next time, as always, stay in your flow.